Welcome to today's video. If you've ever wondered about the timeless financial wisdom that has helped many successful investors build wealth across generations, you're in the right place. We're going to explore 5 powerful financial principles inspired by wisdom traditions that have stood the test of time. Before we dive in, I want to clarify something important. Financial wisdom isn't exclusive to any single cultural or religious group. What we're exploring today are universal principles that have been practiced by successful investors from all backgrounds. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, embodied many of these principles throughout his remarkable investment career. The principles we'll discuss today aren't secrets being hidden from you. Rather, they're often overlooked because they require patience, discipline, and a long-term perspective in a world that often celebrates get-rich-quick schemes and instant gratification. In the next 30 minutes, I'll share 5 foundational principles that have helped countless individuals build lasting wealth. If you apply even one of these concepts to your financial life, it could dramatically change your future. So stay with me until the end. I promise it will be worth your time. Let's start with the first principle: value investing and the margin of safety. Charlie Munger, alongside Warren Buffett, practiced value investing throughout his career. This approach focuses on finding businesses trading below their intrinsic value, essentially buying a dollar's worth of assets for 70 or 80 cents. This concept is known as the margin of safety and serves as protection against errors in judgment or unforeseen circumstances. The traditional Jewish wisdom teaching of measure twice, cut once, parallels this investment approach. It's about careful analysis before making decisions, ensuring you've thoroughly evaluated all aspects of an investment before committing capital. Value investors don't chase hot trends or follow market hysteria. Instead, they conduct thorough research, understand the fundamentals of a business, and wait patiently for the right opportunity when the price is significantly below what the business is truly worth. Consider how different this approach is from what we often see promoted in financial media. Rather than chasing the latest investment fad or trying to time market movements, value investors focus on the underlying business quality and price paid relative to value received. If this principle resonates with you, make sure to hit the like button and let me know in the comments what you think about value investing. Now, let's continue to our second principle. Principle number 2. Compound interest and long-term thinking. Principle number 2. Compound interest and long-term thinking. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world, saying, "He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." Charlie Munger understood this principle deeply, which is why Berkshire Hathaway held investments for decades rather than trying to make quick profits through frequent trading. This principle of patient wealth building has deep roots in many wisdom traditions. There's an old proverb that says, "Wealth gathered little by little will grow." This incremental approach to building wealth stands in stark contrast to lottery ticket thinking or get-rich-quick schemes that dominate much of today's financial media. Let me show you the remarkable power of compound interest with a simple example. If you invest $10,000 and earn a 10% annual return, after 1 year, you'll have $11,000, a $1,000 gain. But after 30 years, without adding a single additional dollar, you'd have over $174,000. That's the miracle of compounding. Your money makes money, which then makes more money. But here's what your financial advisor might not emphasize enough. This requires extraordinary patience. We live in a culture of instant gratification, but true wealth is often built slowly, methodically, and with discipline. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett became billionaires not in their 20s or 30s, but much later in life, after decades of patient investing and allowing compound interest to work its magic. The concept of delayed gratification is central to building generational wealth. Instead of spending all your income today, you consciously set aside capital that can grow for your future self and possibly future generations. This reminds me of the ancient wisdom about planting trees, whose shade you may never sit under. You're building something that extends beyond your immediate needs. This brings us to an important distinction between the wealth-minded and the consumption-minded. Those focused on displaying wealth often trade tomorrow's financial freedom for today's status symbols. Meanwhile, those focused on building true wealth often live below their means, avoiding status consumption in favor of accumulating productive assets. If you're finding value in these principles so far, take a second to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing more essential wealth-building wisdom in just a moment, including a principle that might completely change how you think about financial risk. Now, let's move on to our third principle, circle of competence and specialized knowledge. Charlie Munger frequently emphasized the importance of knowing the boundaries of your expertise. He famously said, "Knowing what you don't know is more useful than being brilliant." This idea, understanding and operating within your circle of competence, is a foundational principle for successful investing. Throughout history, many prosperous business families have cultivated specialized knowledge in specific industries or trade areas. This deep expertise allowed them to spot opportunities others missed and avoid risks others couldn't see. Rather than chasing every opportunity, they developed profound knowledge in select areas where they had competitive advantages. Consider how this applies to your own financial life. Are you investing in businesses or industries you truly understand? Do you have unique insights based on your professional experience or personal interests? Or are you simply following trends and hot tips without foundational knowledge? One of the most powerful aspects of this principle is that it encourages you to leverage your unique background and experiences. Perhaps you work in healthcare and have insights into promising medical technologies. Maybe your experience in retail gives you perspective on changing consumer habits. Your circle of competence is your competitive advantage. Warren Buffett demonstrated this principle by largely avoiding technology investments for decades, not because tech was a bad investment, but because it fell outside his circle of competence. He stuck to businesses he understood, like insurance, consumer goods, and banking. This discipline protected Berkshire Hathaway from devastating losses during the dot-com bubble. Now here's something fascinating most people don't consider. Your circle of competence doesn't have to be in business or investing directly. Perhaps you understand human psychology, which helps you remain calm during market panics. Maybe you have technical skills that let you evaluate products in certain industries. Your unique knowledge and perspective are valuable assets. Before we move on to our fourth principle, I want to introduce an important concept that ties into all these ideas: the cultivation of patience as a competitive advantage in a world of instant gratification. In our next principle, I'll show you how this patience transforms into a remarkable wealth-building superpower. Stay with me, because principle number 4 might be the most counterintuitive yet powerful concept in this entire discussion. Principle number 4: avoiding catastrophic losses and intelligent risk management. While most financial discussions focus on making money, Charlie Munger emphasized something different: not losing money. He famously said, "The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily." One massive loss can undo years or even decades of careful compounding. This principle connects to ancient wisdom found across cultures. There's a saying that wealth is not about how much you make, but how much you keep. This perspective shifts focus from chasing returns to preserving capital, a fundamentally different approach to wealth building. Consider this surprising fact: if you lose 50% of your investment, you need a 100% gain just to get back to where you started. This mathematical reality makes avoiding significant losses far more important than most people realize. It's why Warren Buffett's 2 rules of investing are: Rule 1, don't lose money. Rule 2, don't forget rule number 1. Financial advisors often talk about maximizing returns, but they less frequently emphasize minimizing catastrophic risk. Yet historically, many wealthy families have maintained their prosperity not by making spectacular gains, but by avoiding devastating losses that wiped out others. This approach requires understanding different types of risk. There's volatility risk, normal market fluctuations that cause temporary paper losses. Then there's permanent capital impairment, situations where investment value is permanently destroyed and cannot recover. Distinguishing between these risks is crucial. Practical applications of this principle include diversification, but not over-diversification, maintaining emergency reserves, avoiding excessive leverage, and thoroughly investigating investments before committing capital. It also means having the courage to say, "I don't know," and avoiding investments you don't fully understand. Think about what this means for your own financial life. Are you taking unnecessarily large risks trying to hit home runs with your investments? Are you properly diversified, not just across asset classes, but across risk factors? Have you considered what could go catastrophically wrong with your financial plan and built safeguards against those scenarios? If you're finding these principles valuable so far, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe. And I'd love to hear in the comments below, which of these principles do you already practice, and which do you find most challenging to implement? Now, let me share something that might surprise you. We're about to discuss our fifth principle, which contradicts much of the conventional financial advice you've likely heard before. Stay with me, because this insight could fundamentally change how you approach wealth building from this day forward. Principle number 5. Focus on ethical wealth creation through value addition. Charlie Munger often spoke about the importance of creating value, not just extracting it. He noted that true, sustainable wealth typically comes from providing something of genuine value to others. This ethical dimension of wealth creation is often overlooked in financial discussions. Throughout history, many prosperous business families built their wealth by solving problems and meeting needs in their communities. They created products or services that improved people's lives, and their financial success came as a consequence of this value creation. This principle stands in contrast to pure financial speculation or zero-sum thinking, where one person's gain must come at another's loss. Instead, it embraces the idea that wealth can be created, not just transferred, through innovation, service, and meeting human needs. Consider how this applies to your own approach to building wealth. Are you focused on creating value for others through your work or investments? Are you investing in businesses that solve meaningful problems and improve people's lives? Or are you primarily looking for ways to extract value without contributing? The ethical dimension of wealth creation isn't just morally satisfying. It's often more sustainable and resilient. Businesses that consistently provide value tend to maintain customer loyalty, attract talented employees, and weather economic storms more effectively than those focused solely on profit extraction. This principle also relates to stewardship, the idea that wealth isn't just for personal consumption, but carries responsibilities. Many prosperous families throughout history have emphasized giving back to their communities, supporting education, and helping others create opportunity. Warren Buffett exemplifies this principle through both his investment philosophy and philanthropy. He invests in businesses that provide real value to customers, and he has pledged to give away the vast majority of his wealth to causes that help others. His focus has never been wealth accumulation for its own sake, but rather on creating and allocating resources where they can do the most good. Now, let's briefly review the 5 principles we've covered and see how they work together as a comprehensive approach to building sustainable wealth. 1. Value investing and margin of safety. Buying assets below their intrinsic value to protect against errors and market volatility. 2. Compound interest and long-term thinking. Allowing your money to grow exponentially over time through patient, disciplined investing. 3. Circle of competence and specialized knowledge. Focusing on areas where you have unique insights and understanding, avoiding what you don't comprehend. 4. Avoiding catastrophic losses. Recognizing that protecting your capital is often more important than maximizing returns. 5. Ethical wealth creation through value addition. Building wealth by solving problems and meeting needs, not just financial extraction. These principles form a coherent philosophy of wealth building that stands in contrast to much of what dominates financial media today. Instead of promising quick riches, they offer a path to sustainable prosperity through patience, discipline, and ethical behavior. What's particularly powerful is how these principles reinforce each other. The margin of safety helps you avoid catastrophic losses, Long-term thinking gives compound interest time to work its magic. Operating within your circle of competence helps you identify true value and avoid speculation. Creating real value leads to sustainable business models that can compound over decades. If you've stayed with me to this point, you clearly value substance over hype when it comes to financial wisdom. I encourage you to reflect on these principles and consider how you might apply them in your own financial life. Now, let's delve deeper into how these 5 timeless principles can be practically applied in today's complex financial landscape. I want to show you how these concepts aren't just theoretical, but can transform your approach to wealth building in concrete ways. Let's start by examining how these principles have withstood different economic environments throughout history. During the Great Depression, those who invested with a margin of safety and avoided excessive leverage were able to preserve capital when others lost everything. During the inflationary period of the 1970s, businesses with pricing power and real assets, selected by investors operating within their circle of competence, protected wealth while paper assets deteriorated. And during the 2008 financial crisis, those who focused on avoiding catastrophic losses and maintained liquidity were not only protected, but positioned to capitalize on extraordinary opportunities. What's remarkable is how these principles have remained effective across dramatically different economic conditions. This adaptability comes from their focus on fundamental truths about wealth creation rather than tactics that might work in specific market environments. Now, you might be wondering, if these principles are so effective, why aren't they more widely followed? This is a profound question that gets to the heart of why wealth tends to concentrate among those who practice these disciplines. The truth is that these principles often run counter to our natural psychological impulses. Our brains evolved in an environment where immediate rewards were essential for survival. Delaying gratification for decades, maintaining emotional discipline during market volatility, and patiently allowing compound interest to work its magic. These behaviors don't come naturally to most people. Additionally, much of the financial services industry doesn't have strong incentives to promote these principles. There's often more money to be made encouraging frequent trading, complex products, and the pursuit of market-beating returns than in advocating patience, simplicity, and risk management. Let me share some practical ways to implement these principles in your own financial life. First, for value investing and margin of safety, start by evaluating investments based on fundamentals rather than emotions or trends. For stocks, this means looking at financial statements, competitive advantages, and management quality. For real estate, it means carefully analyzing rental yields, location value, and price relative to replacement cost. Whatever the asset class, ask yourself, am I paying significantly less than what this asset is truly worth? If not, patience is the better course. For compound interest and long-term thinking, one practical step is to automate your investment process. Set up automatic transfers to investment accounts before you have a chance to spend the money. Then, commit to specific hold periods for your investments, perhaps telling yourself you won't touch certain assets for at least 10 years, barring extraordinary circumstances. This helps override the psychological tendency to interrupt compounding unnecessarily. Regarding your circle of competence, begin by inventorying your unique knowledge, experiences, and skills. Where do you have insights that others might lack? If you work in healthcare, you might better understand which medical innovations address real clinical needs. If you've spent years in retail, you might spot consumer trend shifts before Wall Street analysts. Use your specialized knowledge as a competitive advantage rather than trying to be an expert in everything. For avoiding catastrophic losses, consider implementing a personal risk management framework. This might include maintaining an emergency fund of 6 to 12 months of expenses, limiting any single investment position to a reasonable percentage of your portfolio, using insurance appropriately, and stress testing your financial plan against worst-case scenarios. Ask yourself, what could go catastrophically wrong, and how am I protected against it? Finally, for ethical wealth creation, Align your career and investments with creating genuine value. Ask of each opportunity, does this solve real problems for people? Does it make the world better in some tangible way? Not only is this more fulfilling, but businesses that create real value tend to have more sustainable competitive advantages and customer loyalty. I want to address some common objections to these principles, because understanding and overcoming these mental blocks is crucial to implementing this wisdom. One frequent objection is, these principles may have worked in the past, but our modern economy is different. While technologies and specific opportunities certainly change, human nature, with its tendencies toward greed, fear, impatience, and overconfidence, remains remarkably consistent. These principles work precisely because they account for these unchanging aspects of human behavior in markets. Another objection might be, I don't have enough money for these principles to matter. This misunderstands the power of these concepts. In fact, those with less initial capital have the most to gain from disciplined application of these principles over time. Remember that many of history's greatest fortunes began modestly but grew exponentially through consistent application of these fundamentals. Some might say, I need higher returns now and can't wait for compound interest. This impatience often leads to exactly the kind of catastrophic losses that destroy wealth. The paradox is that those who pursue fast money usually end up with less, while those with patience tend to build sustainable prosperity. If you're finding these insights valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. I'd also love to hear in the comments which of these principles you find most challenging to implement in your own life, and we can discuss strategies to overcome those specific obstacles. Now, let's explore something fascinating about these 5 principles, how they tend to be transmitted across generations in prosperous families. Throughout history, many successful business families have deliberately educated their children in these concepts from an early age. They understood that wealth itself can be inherited, but the mindset required to maintain and grow it must be cultivated. This generational perspective on wealth building differs dramatically from today's common focus on immediate financial goals. Rather than asking, how can I get rich quickly? The better question might be, how can I build financial habits and knowledge that will benefit my family for generations? This long-term view changes how we think about education, career choices, spending decisions, and investment strategies. It encourages investing in skills and knowledge that compound over time, prioritizing financial education, and making decisions with future generations in mind. Charlie Munger himself demonstrated this multi-generational perspective. While into his 90s, he continued making investment decisions that would likely yield their greatest benefits long after his lifetime. This wasn't just admirable, it was strategic. By extending his time horizon beyond his own life, he accessed opportunities others couldn't see or wouldn't consider. Now, as we approach the conclusion of our discussion, I want to emphasize that implementing these principles isn't about pursuing wealth as an end in itself. Rather, it's about creating opportunities, independence, and the ability to make meaningful choices in your life and the lives of others. What's truly valuable about financial prosperity isn't the capacity for luxury consumption, but rather the freedom it provides. Freedom from financial stress, freedom to pursue meaningful work, freedom to help others, and freedom to make choices based on values rather than necessity. Let me share something powerful about these 5 principles. They don't just apply to investing in the stock market. They can be applied to almost every aspect of wealth creation, from your career choices to business decisions, from real estate investing to personal spending habits. For example, the concept of margin of safety applies brilliantly to career development, rather than specializing in just one narrow skill that could become obsolete. Develop a range of complementary abilities that create unique value in combination. This creates a personal margin of safety against economic disruption. Similarly, compound interest applies to knowledge and skills, not just money. Each new ability you develop doesn't just add to your capabilities. It multiplies what you can do by combining with your existing skills. This is why continuous learning compounds your career capital exponentially over time. Your circle of competence concept should guide not just investment decisions, but entrepreneurial ones as well. Some of the most successful businesses have been built by people who deeply understood an industry's problems from first-hand experience and were uniquely positioned to solve them. The principle of avoiding catastrophic losses applies powerfully to entrepreneurship. Many successful business owners didn't succeed with their first venture. What differentiated them was their ability to fail small and survive to try again. They structured their attempts so that no single failure would be financially fatal. And ethical value creation? This principle explains why businesses that genuinely improve customers' lives tend to outperform those focused solely on extraction or manipulation. Businesses built on real value creation often develop stronger customer loyalty, better word of mouth, and more motivated employees. Let's talk about how to implement these principles, regardless of your current financial situation. Whether you're starting with substantial capital or building from scratch, these concepts remain equally relevant. If you're early in your wealth-building journey, your most valuable asset is time, the essential ingredient that makes compound interest work its magic. Focus first on increasing your saving rate by living below your means, while simultaneously increasing your earning power through skill development. Even small amounts invested consistently will grow dramatically given enough time. For those already with some assets, conduct a thorough audit of your current investments and assess them against these 5 principles. Are your investments aligned with your circle of competence? Do they have adequate margins of safety? Are they positioned to compound over decades rather than months? Have you protected yourself against catastrophic scenarios? Do they create genuine value in the world? A critical mindset shift that accompanies these principles is moving from a scarcity mentality to an abundance perspective. Scarcity thinking leads to zero-sum approaches, where you believe someone must lose for you to win. Abundance thinking recognizes that wealth can be created, not just transferred, through innovation and value addition. Another essential mindset shift is from consumption to production. Those who build significant wealth typically focus first on producing value and creating assets, with consumption as a secondary concern. Meanwhile, those who struggle financially often prioritize consumption over production. Consider how Charlie Munger lived this philosophy. Despite his billions, he lived in the same modest home for decades, drove ordinary cars, and focused on reading, learning, and creating value rather than displaying status. His focus was on building something meaningful rather than impressing others with consumption. What's particularly fascinating about these wealth principles is how they often align with overall life satisfaction. Research consistently shows that after basic needs are met, additional consumption brings diminishing returns in happiness. Meanwhile, the autonomy, mastery, and purpose that come from building something meaningful, whether a business, an investment portfolio, or a legacy, correlate strongly with life satisfaction. This brings us to an important truth. The principles that build financial wealth often parallel those that create a rich life in non-financial dimensions. Patience, discipline, continuous learning, risk management, and contribution to others. These aren't just financial strategies, but life strategies. If you're finding value in this discussion, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'd also love to know in the comments, which of these wealth-building principles resonates most strongly with you personally? Now, let me address something that might be on your mind. These principles sound great, but how do I start implementing them today? Let me give you some specific, actionable first steps. First, conduct a personal financial inventory. List all your assets, liabilities, income sources, and expenses. This baseline understanding is essential before making strategic decisions. Second, calculate your personal saving rate, the percentage of your income that you're directing toward investments rather than consumption. For most people who build significant wealth, this number is at least 20% and often much higher during key wealth accumulation years. Third, identify your unique areas of knowledge and expertise, your personal circle of competence. What do you understand deeply that others might not? This could be related to your profession, hobbies, cultural background, or life experiences. Fourth, create a personal margin of safety by building an emergency fund, reducing high-interest debt, and ensuring you have appropriate insurance coverage. Remember, avoiding financial catastrophe is as important as maximizing returns. Fifth, audit your current investments or business activities through the lens of value creation. Are they solving real problems and meeting genuine needs? If not, consider redirecting your resources toward opportunities that create meaningful value. These 5 initial steps provide a foundation for implementing the wealth-building principles we've discussed. They don't require special connections, privileged information, or even significant starting capital, just discipline, patience, and clarity of purpose. As we near the conclusion of our discussion, I want to emphasize an important truth. Building wealth through these principles isn't a get-rich-quick proposition. It's a get-rich-right approach that unfolds over decades rather than days. In a world full of financial noise, cryptocurrency speculation, day trading apps, meme stocks, and endless investment fads, these foundational principles may seem almost boring by comparison, but that's precisely their power. They work not because they're exciting or novel, but because they align with fundamental economic realities and human psychology. So I invite you to embrace the power of these timeless principles. Start where you are, with what you have. Apply these concepts consistently over time, and watch as they transform not just your financial situation, but your relationship with money and wealth. Thank you for staying with me throughout this exploration of these powerful wealth-building principles. If you found value in this discussion, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and share with someone who might benefit. Your engagement helps this channel reach more people with these important ideas. In the comments below, I'd love to hear which principle you plan to implement first in your own financial life. Until next time, remember, true wealth isn't built overnight, but day by day, decision by decision, through patience, discipline, and wisdom.